Uh, Hi, everyone. Welcome to this webinar with Dr. Alan Abbas. I'm Thomas Eslov from Malmo Center for ISTDP. I'm very happy to have all of you here to listen to this webinar. We're very fortunate that Alan volunteered to do this for free and speak a bit about his own history with Devalued and speak a bit about idealization and devaluation of psychotherapy training and specifically of ISTDP. This, of course, is a major issue in all psychotherapy training, and I think we're very fortunate to have people like Alan who are addressing these things in this way that you will see here tonight. We are recording this thing, but you are not allowed to record any of it. And in an edited form, some of this might be put up on YouTube at a later stage. After about an hour of lecture, Alan will lecture for about 1 hour, and then we will have a discussion at 7 Swedish time. And I've written here that I'm going to say something about the mission of the Malmo Center for ISTDP, but I'm struggling a bit to know in which end to begin doing that. So maybe I'll just say this, that one of the missions that we have with the Malmo Center for ISTDP is that we want more people to get involved in creating ISTDP. We want more leaders, more teachers, more people, more therapists, and we're wanting to create different spaces for different kinds of lectures and webinars and courses. So tonight we're having Alan Abbas here, and sometime in the future it might be you who we've invited to do some talk here. Thank you to everyone for coming, and please enjoy the webinar. Thank you, Alan.
Great. All right. So thanks for having me, Thomas, and welcome to everyone, and congratulations on opening your center there. This is quite a big thing to talk about, I have to tell you. I've done a lot of thinking about it, on what to do about it, what to talk about. You know, if you know Thomas, you know Thomas is going to challenge you. So he's challenged me many times over the years about different things and different topics. So I'm accepting the challenge, and I'm going to do what I can do my best to hear. And so here's the plan. I'm going to talk about it. The impacts on group and members, learning patterns, a realistic picture of ISTDP and psychotherapy, and preventative measures that we can take, all of us. The limitations is just this is my opinion, my perspective. It's not a whole answer. It's not a perfect answer. It's just for some conversation and thinking. And I'm raising this out of caring for the development of therapists and psychotherapy overall. And also partly putting this out because of feelings about others being hurt and me being hurt by processes when this stuff is not addressed by the leadership and membership of groups. And through speaking about ISTDP, even though I'm talking about this, it applies to any group and any treatment approach. So it's not like a unique version, and I'll explain that. So as I mentioned here, so ISTDP is sometimes taught as an ideal, and it's often mistakenly contrasted or to devalue other therapy methods and theorists. Like, so it's like this is like an all good and that's an all bad. And trainees may wish to believe they found the key solution to all human suffering and the truth, the gold standard, you know. And when the trainees and teachers both agree on this, learning stops and problems begin. So that's the whole thesis here. And because this treatment has such emotional component in it, it more is predisposed to these problems of idealization and devaluation, because it puts such an emotional pressure on the therapist and the patient in the learning context, in the self-review process. So it's a pressurized state where it's more easier possible to get into idealizing and devaluing. So it can get idealizing the method, idealizing the founder, idealizing the local trainer supervisor, not denying the limitations of the method, the limitations of our own selves to use these approaches, denial of other factors in the health and well-being of people. So in other words, thinking it's all psychological every single time, exaggerating training level. That's a common theme. Person goes to 2 workshops and then they hang up their sign claiming to be an expert without having had any training. This happens. Exaggerating one's outcomes, idealizing or devaluing oneself, and devaluing other therapists' theories and other healing methods which contribute to well-being. And then there's other worse things, blaming the patient when the, quote, good method fails. So the good method, bad patient. And then devaluing of ISTDP from those in and out of training. So there's splitting, and I'll describe some of these a bit more here. I think it's pretty obvious, hopefully it's obvious to you, that what the problems of idealizing are. There's no anxiety, there's no healthy doubt, there's no skepticism, there's no questioning anything. One, the person is right, others are wrong. Even if there's a disagreement, the other person is wrong. And often the explanation might be because it's their unconscious, their own resistance. And it induces fear and splitting of the system and of others. Leads to over-application of the method and misapplication to patients who really shouldn't be having these approaches, and multiple causation, more poor outcomes, dropouts, adverse effects. It also induces hostility and avoidance of others due to fear of what feels like a cult or could become a cult for people. So it has a negative effect on bringing people in when these kind of things are happening. And it ends up isolating people from healthy conversations and growth that can come from interaction with other parts of the system, including healthcare system, medical system, and other systems. So what you have is you have the guru and you have the self. And there's, in this situation, there's some kind of a merging takes place. And in the group, there's a merging where everyone is in this sort of a mutual idealization. And with it, there's an insistence on purity and uniformity. Don't ask questions, kind of an attitude. In fact, you're told, back in the beginning of my training, I was asking questions. I mean, that's what we do. Medical students ask questions. I was told, don't ask questions. Don't ask questions, Dr. Abbas. Just sit and absorb. And don't challenge the master. And that don't challenge the master means really suppress your feelings about the master. The master is protected in an idealized fashion. There's always a threat of exile or removal. Members have to exile other members. So there's always a fear of who's going to exile who. And members tell the guru about misbehavior and get credit for it in some way. The other is the saddest part, I think, is there's no equals to the master. So the master never has anyone who has ever functionally ever completed training or gotten to a level of colleague, because there can't be 2 equals in this setting, right? There has to be one up, and then the others are pathologically attached. Targeting of those outside the group is a component of that, and targeting of those people who are removed from the group. So it goes like this. You have this group, you have these red things here, which are the guards that both protect the people, supposedly protect the people inside, but also do the attacking outside. And the word is that these other programs or people are dangerous, quotes, they're not trained, quotes, they're not able to teach, et cetera, et cetera. It's a spoken devaluation. Or I'll give you some other ones I've heard, for example, so-and-so only does supportive therapy. So-and-so doesn't do ISTDP. So-and-so only works with somatic patients. Like, and these are all things that have been said about me. So so-and-so doesn't take enough history, So there's sort of these these things to basically devalue the people outside, keep everyone in there. The other thing here, as soon as a trainee leaves the program or is ejected from the program, they immediately become a green triangle over here. So there's no in between. You're in, or you're in the protected zone where everyone else is bad, or you're thrown out to the wilderness, where so it's a very tough system when there's idealization centered around a guru without an ability to question, without things we'll talk about to protect the system. And obviously growth doesn't take place in that system. There's too much destructiveness built into that system to grow in the system. It's possible to grow inside oneself to some extent, inside the system, but it's not that easy because there's always sort of an external pressure and threats, et cetera, in that system. And internal work and growth gets put on the sidelines. Instead, it's other interests of protecting the group. And clinical outcomes don't change. And that's also sad. You see people go for years and years and not improve on their own training capacity. And so it's a destructive pattern for everyone in the picture. And I said it's not unique. It can be to ISTDP. It can be anything. CBT, EMDR, SSRI, that's medication. It can be any of these things. ISTDP may be more predisposed because it's so activating. And so we need to be really careful with ourselves, connected to ourselves, and other things that I'm going to talk about. It's really the behavior of idealizing a treatment that's the problem, as opposed to the treatment itself. The treatment itself is not a problem. It's the behavior of the idealizing and devaluing that's a problem. It's a behavior problem. So if you think about what kind of patterns are there, there's a spectrum of responses there that you can see. I just put it on our old spectrum here. Isolating affect and muscle tension, repression, depression, and somatization, projection, splitting, cognitive perceptual disruption. And so the same person can have these in different circumstances related to different people as well. So a person can, at one point in training, have this muscle tension, then they can have some component that goes through repression, and they can have some component that goes to the split cognitive disruption. It's possible to have all three of these pathways in learning. I mean, I'm going to say it's mostly normal that you're going to have feelings that have to do make muscle tension, that go to the stomach and tired, and they go to other split processes too, on a tendency, depending on your own life, your own background, what kind of early attachments you've had, what you've been through. So that kind of builds into patterns of learning. And this is based on, I don't know if I've trained many hundreds of people over the last 30 years now. So this is a sort of summary of the patterns. The obsessive pattern, the person is mostly intellectual, intense, and they maybe get some defensiveness going in the training. Then they hold off the defenses, fight the defenses, feelings break through, and they keep growing. They do not end up in an idealized self or the model. They don't end up much in a devalued self or the model. They more or less oscillate in the medium level and keep it as an internal process with tension until feelings can come through, so long as they're fighting the defenses that come around. And the job of the supervisor is to help them observe, to battle their own defenses in a sense, one way or other, directly or indirectly. The next pattern is the depressive. So this person tends to devalue themselves, maybe while idealizing the model, but they tend to go down in the mood and sort of devalue their ability to do therapy or to do anything and self-criticize excessively. But with supervision, that gets, I'm going to call it restructured in a way. And then anxiety goes back to muscles. Then they could hold emotions and start to feel things, and then learning can proceed. That's also not uncommon pattern. Another is I just call it like a cyclothymic or sort of quotes fragile pattern. is flipping up to the idealized, but then going down into sort of more depressive, idealized, depressive. And with the training, these oscillations become smaller until the person gets, goes from idealized to drifting to tension to feeling feelings. In the same way as we see growth in a person with some fragile character structure, and then the learning goes along. That requires certain supervisory assists and other things, but it can go fine too. The last two are the more challenging patterns, or more problematic patterns. One is the fixed devalued. The fixed devalued is the person idealizes the treatment, the method, the supervisor, or something else, but keep devaluing themselves. And, for example, say the treatment's great, but I can't do it. I'm no good. I can't even do anything helpful for my patient. They're given that, but it can be very bad. And that can be very difficult to process here. And in my experience, this happens in individuals who may be prone to bad major depression. So it's something that is something to be able to do something about, to help get back up to a good level. It's challenging. This is the other one, is the fixed idealized. So in the fixed idealized, the person is trying to hold and get a little bit depressive and self-devalued, but then shoot up into idealized, self-idealized, self and other, and can stay up there in an almost hypomanic state, almost like true hypomania. That's a major problem when a person is stuck up there, and it requires assistance. Usually, even if it can be resolved, it's very tough. I put a few thoughts on this, on how to try to help this or how to deal with this, by maintaining a positive regard for the colleague stuck in this, understand it, recognize it can happen in teams, keep talking, peer support. It takes time, interaction, and caring to help a person that's stuck in that. Involves having a culture of supportive challenge and openness, where people can give each other feedback amongst the group. Involves the teacher doing things to try to prevent this by continually pointing to the reality of the limits of the approach and of anybody applying it. So basically, you're putting a pressure against the idealization and being the same as against the devaluation. So it's just you keep pointing to the limits and the reality. And supervision can help to prevent this. So what's then is a realistic picture of psychotherapy? If you think about it, we have psychological, then we have stuff like interpersonal, emotional, behavioral, cognitive, and other elements. This is just 4 I put in here, that are all psychological elements. And then we have the body, biology, chemistry, whatever you want to think about it, the biological elements, and you have social, familial, environmental factors. It's a biopsychosocial model of causation. So when a person lives in a zone in their city where there's violence all the time, where there's no security, where there's not enough food, at times they have chronic diabetes, right? They have 3 or 4 pills. You're going to do psychotherapy, but you're going to be running up against these factors. Sometimes it involves encourage them to get good medical care, see if there's anything they can do about their situation, their family, social situation. So my point is that this is one of other things. So psychotherapy as a collection is limited, and so is ISTDP. So 20% at least don't benefit. So that is the 20% figure comes from my first 6 years of work, where I found about 80%, 80.4% of people got something and seemed to keep it in a passive follow-up interval. Devalued found 83% on this first case series got benefits, and that were good benefits. So 1 out of 5 I think, is an optimistic figure. Okay, it depends on your referral base and everything else. 1 in 6 drop out in Peters, Roberts, and other colleagues' meta-analysis. Okay, so about a sixth. And there are people that return after short treatment courses, especially. They come back and have more treatment. But still, it's a large effect, but it's not universally effective. This is not a cure-all for everybody. That's my point. In a personality disorder study, we found there were 83% fewer personality disorder diagnoses. Okay. In our treatment-resistant depression study, we found 40% went to full remission. But if you can believe it, that's the best ever published for treatment-resistant depression. But that means 60% were not fully remitted. Some improved, but they didn't remit. So the point is this: 16 sessions with this group. By the way, we think if we do twice as many sessions, we could probably hit 60. But 60 is not 100. Okay, that's my point. And this is another thing, is that, you know, we say, I got the major unlocking, or I didn't get anything good done. These outcomes are on a continuum. And I have research data on this. My colleagues published some as well, that when they can have a person can have a major unlocking, they do better. The treatment is shorter, lower relapse, better outcomes, and better cost effectiveness, right? When they have a partial unlocking, and that's all they have, they get symptom and personality changes as well. When they have a first breakthrough only, less than 10% relapse. When they get high rise, no breakthrough, no past, no unconscious unlocking of any sort, more vitality, symptoms improve, they have dreams, their access to their mind improves, and there's about 20% relapse. And even down here, this is a low rise. The ever devalued low rise is, you know, mostly the person is having regressive phenomena. There's some cognitive work takes place, and about half relapse, but half don't. Okay, so this is not a 0, and this is not a 100. That's my point. It's a continuum, and like all of us, like I did my trial today, I'm doing my best. I want to try to push up to here if I can. Sometimes it can't happen. For reasons in me, the patient, the team, whatever it is, we can try to go, but I'm not going to beat myself up if I just go to here. Making an effort helps generally. Most of the time, it's helpful to do the general things of psychotherapy. If they can get emotional exposure and all that good things that we aim for, then that's a bonus on the top for most people. So here's the question then, is why should we learn this method if it's got these limitations? Well, it makes sense. The metapsychology makes sense. The emphasis on video training, I think, is awesome. And the EDT methods have this. A structure that I think can be very helpful to navigate difficult moments with the patient. You know, to have some tools for when it's really difficult in the session. The data is strong. There's around 100 studies showing broad effectiveness. 1 session is helpful on average. And 5 out of 6 psychiatric referred patients are candidates. This is broadly applicable. It can be used with a broad population. The other is that it does appear to give better results than some other methods, including supportive therapy. And in chronic pain, it looks to perform better than CBT for chronic pain in a recent publication we did. And unlocking appears to give better results than not. And at the very least, no treatment has been shown to be better than it, right? So if you look at this here, this is 6 controlled trials of short-term dynamic therapy for personality disorder. Here's ours. I think this may be one of the best tests of ISTDP, and I'll tell you why. All the therapists were in supervision with Devalued. All of us had 5 years experience in supervision with Devalued. So the group was highly trained, okay? And this is the only one that on interpersonal problems, this is an interpersonal problem measure that got down into the normal range. The other ones on average improved, but the improvement with this study was better than the only one that got into the normal range. So what do we do then? role of the trainers. We got a balanced view. We want to present a realistic picture to others. This should be in a second here. Trainees, trainers present a balanced view and a realistic picture of the approach. Okay. Dialogue if they have differences with other teachers. So for example, if any of my teacher colleagues think I'm doing something wrong, please give me a call. Come to a course, you're welcome. You know, just come in and give me feedback if you think there's something I'm doing wrong. Happy to hear from you. And if you want, I'm happy to do the same for you. Help trainees balance and keep these things, try to write in a balanced way. Even when you're being pulled to idealize or whatever, try to put out information in a balanced way, try to advertise in a balanced way. So these are some things to aim for. And trainees, bring up issues with your trainer. Find a way to converse about it. I mean, issues relate to your feelings that are coming up, whether they be transference or not transference or whatever. Be able to have a conversation with the trainer, because look, I mean, I had huge number of breakthroughs with my supervisor and with Devalued when I was in training with him. It was a catalyst for me. So even though I didn't get to, I mean, I would talk to him, I would think about it, and I would talk to some people. I managed to get some of these feelings through, but even though the environment wasn't so conducive to it, it's still possible to do it. But if the trainers make it more possible, I mean, you know, so someone comes in my supervision and they're pissed off, and I can see that they're fired and pissed off, and I, you know, I sit with that, I validate that thing, and the next thing is the Kleenex, and they're talking about something painful. This happens, and then their work seems to make a leap after this, right? Trainees look inward, have a balanced view of yourself and a balanced view of the therapy. Have an eye open for these kind of patterns and consider it a dialogue.